لا زلط، لا معانا ملابس ولا معانا تغذية ناكلها ولا معانا ولا حاجة.
Without warning, they were driven out of their homes. They went to places unfamiliar to them in search of a chance for safety. These are the displaced, the war victim and fuel together, thrown by waves of loss to all directions.
احنا ضبحانين نازحين.
Another aspect of humanitarian tragedy that's afflicting Yemen, which extends and expands as the war intensifies. According to the UNHCR, the number of Yemenis who experienced displacement as of the first half of 2017 reached over 3 million Yemenis living in tragic humanitarian conditions in displacement areas. And recently about 1 million of them returned to their areas of origin, which are also experiencing insecurity conditions, social vulnerability, and also missing assistance for recovery and reconstruction.
Our village was totally destroyed. Now there is no standing. All buildings have turned into debris.
Most of the displaced people are living in the open. They have nothing. They left their furniture and left all their belongings in their homes. They escaped with their lives.
That day, they hit the Mazraq IDP camp and they hit the bridge of Harad. I carried my children while they had not had their lunch due to bombings over our homes. What to take? We hardly managed to save our lives.
In response to this humanitarian tragedy and the difficult conditions experienced by the displaced, the intervention of the Social Fund for Development, represented by the Cash for Work program, took place in one of the most important Yemeni areas, which embodies the tragedy of multiple displacement, with all its dimensions and details. This is Mostaba district of Hajjah Governorate, neighboring the blazing border areas. Mostaba is just 20 kilometers away of the war zone. Most of the inhabitants of these border areas have been forced to move to areas free of life requirements. These risks haven't prevented the Cash program team from access to these poorest communities in November 2016, who have implemented 2 projects to support and operate the displaced in 7 villages in Mustaba district, costing $173,000. The project targeted 422 households from several communities in the district. Women had a prominent participation in labor with consideration of her physical capacity.
The IDPs from Harad district and from other districts of Saada Governorate left all their furniture and homes, and they came here to this area but finding no support. The components that we do first are repairing shelter for IDPs. The second thing is building latrines and sanitation pits, each one fitting 5 to 9 households.
The Cash for Work program adapts with many changing conditions in the country. It encounters high-risk ratios, but for these vulnerable people, in order to serve the needy, especially the displaced and the affected, we are resolute to reach them no matter what.
I suffered several risks in all roads that pass across the conflict areas. Bombings took place just minutes before we passed the area. Fortunately, he passed unharmed.
The provision of temporary employment to beneficiaries and granting them wages for work at an average of $500 per household has been a major goal that the Cash for Work program seeks to achieve in all its projects, including this emergency response, which provided nearly 30,000 temporary jobs to displaced people. In addition to the improvement of shelter for displaced people, latrines have been set up to protect them from contagious diseases and epidemics that overspread in the hot weather and which are not less deadly than the war.
I buy and build. With the cash, I will build a shelter and purchase tomatoes, onions, vegetables, and edible stuff.
Among the long-term objectives of the Cash for Work program is to train the displaced on the skills in the field of building, such as shelter and plumbing skills that may help them in the future.
The SFD gives us cash for work. This is the first job I have gained and I have learned building.
Displacement in Yemen remains larger and broader than the limited financial resources of the Cash for Work program. This disaster, which extends to several governorates, worsens further as the provision of life-saving aid to these poor people gets lower. Until the war machine stops and the bleeding of displacement halts, the support of such successful humanitarian projects will continue to remain a human need and an ethical imperative, until those living in despair and frustration find a window for hope.